Good evening, everyone, and welcome back to the Web Development Bootcamp. I believe you enjoyed your festive break. Well, for me, I really did enjoy it. All right, so today will be the eighth day, or I will call it class 8 of the 2 weeks Web Development Bootcamp. And in few like in few days from now we should end the class. Um after after today we'll have like 2 to 3 days left to finish the 2 weeks web development bootcamp. And if you are watching this video for the first time, or if you come across my YouTube channel for the first time, for those that will be watching this video later, if you come across my YouTube channel for the first time, please do well to subscribe, comment, and like. All right, thank you. So let's move on. So we're going to create a new folder. I'll call it class 8. Class 8. So today we are looking at CSS Flexbox and CSS Grid. And we have 2 hours to be able to treat each of these CSS topic. Even though we're not going to go into details of it, but at least we'll touch 70 to 80% of CSS Flexbox and CSS Grid. So, all right, let's move on. So I'm just going to start with, I'm going to create a new file under class 8 folder, and I'll call it flex.html. HTML. I'll also create another one. I'll call it grid.html. So let's start with the flex. I'll generate my HTML boilerplate. I'm going to call this CSS Flexbox. CSS Flexbox. I'll also do the same thing to here, but this time around I'm going to call this CSS Grid. CSS Grid. So all right, let's see what we have. I'm going to, before I start explaining the meaning of Flexbox and Grid, let me just do something simple here. I'm going to have a div. I'll call it boxes. I'll say box container, and I'm going to generate like 4 boxes. So I'm going to generate 4 boxes here. So I'll just say div dot, or should I make it 5? Let's say 5 boxes. So I'll just say div dot box times 5. So I'm going to give it 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5. So that now. So I'm going to do the same thing too for the grid. So I'll paste it here. All right, so let's style. So we are going to use embedded styling in this case. Embedded styling. So I will do box, sorry, dot box container. I will give it let's say I'll give it a width of 600 or 800 pixel. 800 pixel. I think that's all for now. Then for the box dot box, I'm going to give it a width of, let's say, 150 pixel. Then a height of 150 pixel. All right, good. Then I'm going to select each of the box. So I'll just do dot box. then end child. So I'm sure this shouldn't be new to you, the end child. So I'm just going to give this background color of this. Now do dot box end child 2. I'll give this a different background color. Let's see. No, no, no. Let's see what we have here. Let me give it red. Okay, good. Good. Dot box and child 3. Let's see what we have. Black. Huh? No, 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 I don't want black. I don't want black. I don't want black. Uh, Good. And box and child 4. Background color. Let's see what we have here. I don't want this. Let's use green. Aha. Good. Box and child 5. So let's see. Let's see. Let's see. I think this is better. So I'm just going to copy this style. Copy this style. Paste it here. You might want to ask, why didn't we use why are we not using external style sheet? I don't want to, because I'm going to style this separately now. So let me open this with live server, and this is what we have here. That's for the flex box here. CSS Flexbox. Can you see? All right, good. So let's give the container a border. Let's give the container a border of 2 pixel solid, and let's say black. Um, Something, yes, yeah. Let's give it black. Let's see what we have here. Can you see? Same black here. All right. So I'm just going to copy this and do the same thing too for the grid as well. All right. Simple. So this is what we have. So let's see how we can style this appropriately. And also, do I need any proper styling? I think it's okay. Think it's okay. It's okay. All right. Please hold on. All right. So let's look at the meaning of flexbox. Meaning of flexbox. So if we still have time after we are done with CSS Flexbox and CSS Grid, then we should be able to build this. We should be able to build this, and if there's no time for that, we might look at that tomorrow, which is Sunday. We'll look at that tomorrow. So we'll look at this and also look at other project too as well. All right. So let's move on. So yeah, what is Flexbox and why is it useful? What is Flexbox and why is it what useful? So let me read this part for. Let me read this part. Oh, okay. Okay, it says Flexbox is all about arranging a group of items in a row or column. Flexbox is all about arranging a group of items in a row or column. giving us a great amount of control over the distribution and the alignment of those items. Flexbox is all about flexibility. We can control whether an item we can control whether item should grow or should shrink, how extra space is distributed, and more. So you can see with Flexbox CSS, we have um, we have a greater amount of control over the distribution and the alignment of our flex items. All right. So let's look at this other definition or what Flexbox simply means. So Flexbox layout is a CSS layout module designed to arrange and to align elements in a container efficiently, even when their size is unknown. It is particularly useful for creating responsive designs and managing the layouts of items in a single row or column. So please take note of responsive design. It is useful. It is useful for creating responsive design and managing the layout of items either in a single row or in a single column. So let us look at key features. Key features of Flexbox. So number one is one dimensional layout. So Flexbox focuses on aligning items in one direction at a time, either horizontally or what vertically. So horizontal simply means row, while vertical simply means what column. Then two or second feature of Flexbox is dynamic item sizing. Dynamic item sizing. Flexbox allows item to shrink, to grow, or to stay static based on the available space in the container. Then the third key features of Flexbox is alignment capacity. Alignment capability, sorry. Alignment capability. So Flexbox offers easy methods to align and to distribute items even if they are of different sizes. You get that? Even if they are of different what sizes. So let us look at flex container property. For instance, we have this element here, this div here. We have the parent div, that's the box container here. If you still remember, the box container that is holding these five boxes. So these five boxes are the children of this div that has a class of what? Box container. So now by default, div is a block element. The display of div is what? Block. So that's why you can see that they are stacked on top of each other. You notice they're stacked on top of each other. You can see the great amount of space that we have in the parent container here. So now with the help of Flexbox, we can align this, we can align the boxes inside of this container. We can align them either in a row or what in a column. And we can also distribute the items. That means the boxes, you can distribute them equally based on the available space that we have in the container. So to do that, there are properties that we need to apply to the parent element that is holding the items we want to what align either horizontally or what vertically. So let's look at the properties we need to apply for the containers. So a flex container is the parent element that holds the items. To enable Flexbox, you have to set the display property of the container to flex. You get that now? Set it to flex. So notice here the parent container is this div that has a class of what? Box container. It is not yet a flex. It is not yet flex. It's not yet a flex property yet. It's not a flex property yet. It is still a block element. You get that now? But you have to change the display to what? Flex before the container can be seen or regarded as a flex container. You get that now? Before it can be regarded or seen as a what? Flex container. So let's look at it. So I'm going to come here. I already have the container selected here, dot box container here. And I'm going to do this. I'll just say display. I'll type display flex. Then when to type display flex, this what do you call it? The parent element now is no longer a block element. It's now what? A flex element. So let's see what is going to happen as we change the display from block to what? Flex. Now look at what we are going to get here. Can you see? Can you see? Interesting, right? Good. I guess let me reduce the width from the width of each box from 120 to 100, and also the height from 150 to 100. My pardon. So let's see. So all right. So if you I'm also going to I'm also going to increase the height of this box container. I'm also going to increase it because apparently we don't have a height for it yet. So I'm just going to give it 500 pixel. I'll give it 500 pixel, and voila, look at what we have here. Okay, so I think we are good to go. Please hold on. So we gave it 500 pixel. I think that should be fair enough. 500 pixel. All right, good. Let me give it a box sizing of border box. So let's see what we have. Yeah, box sizing of border box. Or let me do it for all items. Hold on. Before I do that, let me accept someone. All right, so let's move on. Okay, let me still accept someone. All right, so let's proceed. So I'm just going to do asterisk here, then I paste what I cut from the previous selector. All right, so I think we are good to go. All right, good, 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 good. It's supposed to reflect here. Oh, where am I doing it? Box sizing to border box. Let me refresh. It's not reflecting. What could be the problem? Coming. Let me open it again. Still the same thing. All right, let's move on. Let's let that one not distract us. Shouldn't distract us at all. All right. Oh, I get the reason why. I remember margin is supposed to be zero, padding supposed to be zero. CSS reset. I didn't do that. Can you see that now? So I'm going to center this box now. I will do margin. Let's say 20 pixel top and bottom, then auto left and right. So I'm going to center it. So you see. So if you are just joining my class for the first time, all these things that we are doing here, it might be new to you. So I will advise that you go back to the day one of the web development bootcamp, follow it through, then you will understand this. Within 2 weeks, you should have been able to master HTML and CSS and build website confidently with HTML and CSS. You get that? So my JavaScript course will be coming out. My JavaScript course will be coming out after this 2 weeks web development bootcamp. You get that? After this 2 week web development bootcamp, that should be like next week, I guess. So next week it's going to be a live class, just like the way we have it like this. It's going to be a live class, and also the live class will also be recorded so that you can revisit the video anytime and any day. So the cost is not free, but it's also affordable. It's just $20 for it's just $20. And for my Nigerian um, people, I think just equate $20 to the current equate $20 to naira. I think that should be like 30K or something or over that. So if you're interested, you can reach out to me. All right, let's move on. Um, okay, we're good to go. So you see it's properly centered. Now notice something. The moment I set the display of the parent element to what? Flex. The moment I set the display of the parent element to flex, look at flex. What do you observe? You observe that the box or the boxes or the children item became what? Aligned horizontally. If I comment this display now, look at what we have. We are having this block property. You see? Block. You see that now block. But the moment I change it, let me make it four items instead. Sorry, let me make it four items. I'm just going to comment this last box. So all right. Let me make it four items. So now what? We have this is a block element by default, but the moment I uncomment this, if I uncomment this and I set the display to flex, look at what we are getting. To it's aligning this horizontally. That's in a row. So by default, when you set the display of a container or of a parent element to flex, please listen. Once you set the display of a parent element to flex, the items or the children or the HTML element inside of the parent element will automatically be aligned horizontally. So that the children in the parent container are no longer block element or inline element. They are now flexed item. The container has become flex container, while the element inside of the container has now become what? Flexed item or flex item. You get that now? So can you see the moment you set the display of the parent element to display, we set the display of the parent element to flex, the children or the HTML element inside of the parent element what was aligned horizontally by default. You see that now? By default. All right, let's continue. Then the next thing we have to look at as the properties for flex container. Number one is display set to flex. Then number two is flex direction. So flex direction specifies the direction of the main axis along which items are laid out. So now this will lead me to what we call main axis and cross axis. Main axis and cross axis. Or before then, let us look at the let's look at the function, the what they call it, flex direction. So by default, when you set the container a parent element to what? Display flex, by default the children element will be aligned horizontally. That's by default. But you can alter that. You can say, okay, I want the flex direction to be what? Column. So can you see flex direction? We have column reverse, we have row reverse. So if I make it row now, by default it is row, but I can make it row. So it's still what? The same thing. All right. So, but if I make it row reverse, let's see what we are going to get here. Can you see the row reverse? It's starting from 4. Can you see? Then if I make it column, for instance, let's make it column. So it's going to be aligned vertically. You see that now? So then I can do column what? Reverse. All right. So can you see that now? Good. Good. Okay. Let me make the margin 20 pixel top, auto left and right, then bottom is 0. Uh-huh. Good, 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 good. Mm. Let's see. Okay, so aside from, okay, I think we are done with flex direction. So the next thing is to look at justify content and what align item. So with these properties, then I'm going to now explain main axis and cross axis. So here it says that for justify content, it controls the alignment of items along the main axis. Can you see? Along the main axis. Why align items? Align items, align items along the cross axis. That's perpendicular to the main axis. All right, good. So let's look at that. Let's look at the difference between the main axis and what the cross axis. So the main axis and the cross axis is influenced by the flex direction property. So the flex direction property will determine the main axis and what the cross axis. You get that now? The main axis and the cross axis. So before I show you a picture of it, let me write that down. Hold on. All right. So before I show you the image, let's go back to Visual Studio Code. I'm going to go to the README. So I said, like I said, the flex direction, how am I going to put it? The main axis and the cross axis is determined by the flex direction. All right. So for the main axis, yeah, main axis and cross axis, main axis and cross what axis. So yeah, it says that main axis is the primary axis of a flex box, and the cross axis is the perpendicular to it. Is perpendicular what to it. So and this is, you see, the main axis is determined by the flex direction property. Is determined by the flex direction property. Now it says that if the flex direction is rho, the main axis is horizontal, and if it is column, the main axis is vertical. You see that now? So I had to generate this text using AI. So the cross axis is always perpendicular to what? To the main what axis? To the main axis. So I think we are good to go on that. All right. So let me. Okay. So yeah, it says the main axis is determined by the flex direction property. So if the flex direction is rho, if the flex direction is rho, meaning if the flex direction here is what is rho, that means the main axis will be what? Will be horizontal. Will be what? Horizontal. While the cross axis will be vertical. But if the flex direction is a column, if the flex direction is a column, that means the main axis, this thing is simple math. Oh. The main axis will be vertical, while the cross axis will be horizontal. So the cross axis is not even difficult to get as long as you understand the main axis. So the main axis is the primary axis of the flex container. So if you set the flex direction to be rho, by default is rho, that means the main axis automatically will be horizontal. Get that now? It's going to be what? Horizontal, while the cross axis will be vertical because um the cross axis is perpendicular to the what? To the main axis. So if the main axis is horizontal, the cross axis will be what? Vertical. But if the flex direction is column, that means the main axis will be vertical, then the cross axis will be perpendicular to the main axis, which is what? Horizontal. So now the reason why I'm teaching you this, or the reason why I'm emphasizing on this or stressing this, it is because there are certain properties that we use for main axis and that we use for what? Cross axis. So properties that we use for main axis is just what do you call it now? Is justify content. So property used in main axis, or used for main axis, or whichever preposition you want to use, is what? Justify what? Content. Why? Let me duplicate this. Why for cross axis is going to be align items. Align items. You see that now? Justify content and align items. So whether the main axis is horizontal, whether the main axis is column, the property that we use for main axis is what? Justify content. And the property that is being used for cross axis is what? Align items. So let me show you an image or a picture of it. So look at what we have here. If the flex direction is what? Row, that means the main axis will be what? Horizontal. And the cross axis will be what? Vertical. But if the flex direction is column, the main axis will be what? Vertical, while the cross axis will be what? Horizontal. So this will actually help us to be able to align our flex items both horizontally and what? Vertically, having the understanding of main axis and what? Cross axis. So all right, let's move on. I hope you are following me. So I'm going to remove this flex direction here, or possibly let me just comment it instead. So I'm going to comment it. So we're going to have this by default. So now I want to arrange these items, or distribute this space, the space that we have left here. I want to distribute it horizontally. So to distribute it amongst this item horizontally, I will have to use justify content, because by default the flex direction is what? In row. So the main axis will be what? Horizontal. So based on what we have here, where is it? Justify content see controls the alignment of items along the main axis. So let's see. So we have several values here for the justify content. We have the flex start, the flex end, the center, space between, space around, and even space evenly, though it's not included here. So flex start is the default value of justify content property. So the items are aligned to the start, that means to the left. Then flex end, the items are aligned to the end, that means to the right. Then center, of course, you know what it means. It aligns items in the center. Then space between, items are evenly spaced with gaps between, while space around, items are spaced with gaps around. All right, so let's see how it works. So we are still in the parent container, because these properties that we are looking at are used on the parent container or in the parent container. So I'm going to do this justify content. I'm going to do flex start first. So that's the default. So it's going to start on the left side. That's the default actually. You see? Then let's do flex end. So I do flex end, I save, come here. Can you see? It moves the entire flex item to the end, lies to the right side. Then I can come here, then I'll do what? I can change it to what? Center. Change it to center. Look at what we have. It has centralized it. So now I can also do something like space between. Now if I press and I save it, look at space between. Can you see? Space between, and that's what we have here. It says items are evenly spaced with what? Gaps between the flex item, and that is what we have here, guys. You see that now? Let's do space around. Space around. So if we do space around, what do we have here? Can you see? Space around, quite different from space in between. All right, so there's also space evenly too. You can um experiment with that. Let me okay, evenly. So look at that too. See that now? Good. All right, good, 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 good. So let's move on. Then the next one is align items. So if justify content works for the main axis, and apparently the flex direction is what influence the main axis and the cross axis. So in this case now, the main axis is horizontal. So that means align items will be what? Vertical. I'm sorry, the cross axis will be vertical, and the property that we use for cross axis is what? Align items. So now look at align items along okay, align items property aligns item along the cross axis, that's perpendicular to the main axis. So we have stretch. So by default is what? Stretch. So the item stretch to fill the container. The item stretch to what? Fill the container. That's the default. Then we have flex start. So items align to the start. Then flex end, items align to the end. Center, items align in the center. Then baseline, items align based on their text baseline. All right, so we are just going to look at few of them. So I'll do align items. So let's start with I think the default is stretch. So let's start with flex start. So we'll do flex start. Look at what we have. It's still on top. So if I do flex end, it's going to move it to the bottom. So it will move it to the bottom. See, moves it to the bottom. Then we can do what? Center. So do center. Look at what we have here. That centralize it. So you see, fantastic. So you can, with the help of Flexbox, you can align items both horizontally and vertically at a time. So it is one dimensional layout. So you see that now. Very good. So so I think that's all for properties that we use for flex container. And this understanding, that's what we're going to use to build the header section of our Asian project. So where is it? Asian. That's what we're going to use to build the head section of our Asian project. Can you see that now? Fantastic. So we are going to use Flexbox for this. While we are going to use Grid for this aspect, we use Grid for this aspect. We use Flexbox for this part. Then we use Grid for this display of product. We use both Grid and Flexbox here. We'll use Flexbox here or Grid, whichever one. We can also use Flexbox here or Grid. We can use Flexbox here or Grid. Then we can either use Flexbox here or Grid item. All right. So I think we are good to go. Let's go back to our note. So let's look at properties that we can use for flex items. So we've looked at the parent container. So let's look at property we can use for flex items. So they are just there are two or there are three apparently in this course. So we are going to look at flex grow, flex shrink, and flex what basis. All right. Let's see. So now watch. If I try to reduce this, let me inspect. If I inspect now, So watch. If I try to reduce this, let me see. Notice if I try to reduce this, can you see what we are getting here? This is what we are getting here. So it's not is when I reduce this, you will not be able to see other items. So the reason is because of um no, first of all, the reason is because we gave the box container a definite width of what? 800 pixel. So I'll begin to introduce responsive designs now. Though probably in our next two class, we are going to look at that in details. So when we talk about responsive design, there are certain properties in CSS that helps us to be able to make our website or our web page responsive. So one of which is Flexbox, Grid, and also units that we use in CSS, and also width. So this width that we define here, 800 pixel, is a def is a definite width, like it cannot be changed. So in the sense that what I mean is static, meaning that on the page this is 800 pixels. So even though we try to reduce this, when we reduce this below 800 pixel, we will reduce our container this below 800 pixel. You can see an horizontal scroll bar here, an horizontal scroll bar, but we don't want that. So what we are going to do is, in order for us to make the width to be dynamic, that's where we come with what max width and what mean width. Max width and what mean width. Max width and mean what width. Max width and mean width is very 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 important. So max width, let me see if the AI can help us generate this. Mm, all right. So okay, let's see. Okay. It says that max width and min width as CSS property that controls the maximum and the minimum width of an element, respectively. So now max width simply help us to be able to control the maximum width of an element, and min width help us to control the minimum width of an what of an element. So when we say maximum width, so if I come to my flexbox and I change this from width 800 pixel to what maximum width, so I'll come here, I'll do max what width. So I'm teaching you responsive design now, max width. So this max width simply means that you have set a maximum width for what? For the container. So the maximum width is 800, but it cannot exceed 800, but it can go below 800. You get that now? So the maximum width is what 800. It can only stretch to what 800. It cannot stretch beyond that. You get that now? That's maximum width. So to also make it responsive, you can also do width to be, let's say, 100%. Now, this is what it means here. Because most of the times, even though when you watch other YouTube tutorials, you will always see something like this. This is it. Let me explain this because also it took me time to also understand it when I was learning um CSS and HTML. So when you have maximum width 800 pixel, like you have maximum CSS property. So like maximum width 800 pixel. So we have set a maximum width, a maximum value to our container, which is 800 pixel, meaning that it cannot go above that. So now in the event we we have to give our container an alternate width value, which is what width of what 100 what percent. So this is what it means here. It means that the container when I reduce the container below 800 pixel, then it's going to result to what result to this width, which is what 100%. So now watch. Now can you see, if I increase this now, this is the maximum width is 800 pixel and we centered the width. So the moment I reduce this below 800, now watch, once I reduce below 800, then the width will default to what 100%. So that's why you cannot see any horizontal scroll bar here. So this also helps in responsive design. You get that now? It helps in what responsive design. So you can see, so you can even give it any value. You can give it 100%. You can give it but it has to be percentage. It has to be percentage or viewport width. You see that percentage of viewport width. So that's unit that's relative unit actually. So look at that when we are done with CSS proper what they call it flexbox and grid. So you can make this 90 instead. You can say, okay, I want it to be 90%. So you want it to be 90%, then you want to center it. Now watch, it's going to be what 90%. Still loading. Can you see 90%? 90% of the 90% width. So you can see if I take it, enlarge it now, can you see this is 800 pixel maximum width. The moment I reduce it below 800 pixel, it's going to default to what 90% width. You see that now? Fantastic. So, all right. So, we're going to be using this more often so that you'll be able to understand it and know when to use it and when not to what use it. You get that now? All right. So, now if you notice here, Even the flex items have a default width of 100, 100, 100, 100. That's what we set here, 100, 100, 100. I say 100. But notice when I reduce this, you can see even the flex box, the flex item is shrinking. You see that now? It shrunk to its barest minimum. You see that now? It shrank below 100 pixel width that I set. But why is this like this? Why is it like that? Why is it like that? Hold on. I'm going to show you that. Let's see if we still have time. Okay, we have 9 minutes left. All right. I'm going to okay, before then, let's proceed. Once the time is up to like 2 minutes, then I'll send you a new link. But why is it like this? Huh? This is 100 pixel width flex items. But when I reduce it, so once we reduce it, we reduce our browser screen below 100. Can you see we are reducing it as we reduce um the width of the flex item keeps shrinking to its barest minimum. Why is it like that? Why is it like that? The reason why it is like that is because of what? Flex shrink. There's what we call flex shrink. Flex shrink is a CSS property that is applied on flexed item. So before we look at flex, go look at flex shrink. It says flex shrink determines how much a flex item should shrink relative to others when there isn't enough space. When there isn't enough space, the flex item is going to what? Shrink. So that's the case here. When we reduce and apparently there is not enough space here, it keeps shrinking and shrunk to its barest minimum width. You see that now? So that is shrink. And by default, the value is set to what? 1. So by default, the value is set to 1. Then we have one, they say a value of 0 prevents the item from shrinking. Meaning that once you set the flex shrink value to 0, it's going to prevent the flex item from shrinking. But the default value of every flex item is what? The default value of every flex item shrink is 1. Or how am I going to put it? The default value for flex shrink for every flex item is what? 1. That is why you can see that it is shrinking. All the flex items are what? Shrinking. You see that now? It shrank. So I don't want that. Let me comment this part. I want it to be at the top. Let me comment it. All right, good. So look at shrank. So let's turn it off. So by turning it off, we are going to come to the general container, the general class value, which is box here. I'm going to give it flex shrink. I'll give it what is 0. Once I give it is 0, notice it won't shrink again. Just watch, it won't shrink. Now when I reduce this, can you see it won't shrink? So that's why, see, it won't shrink. But you can see an horizontal scroll bar here showing you that we have exceeded, we don't have limited space here. You see that now? You see? Good. But by default, every flex item has a shrink value of what? 1. So let me comment this now. All right, if I comment it, it's going to shrink to contain the available space that we have. All right, good. So let's move on. All right. Let me also comment this justify content space evenly. Let me comment it so that everything will start on the left side. All right, good. Then the next thing I want us to look at is hold on, let's see how many time I have left. Okay, 5 minutes. So the next thing I want us to look at is flex grow. So flex grow defines how much a flex item should grow relative to others. So the default value of flex grow property is what? Is 0. That means no growth. Then you can give it a value from 1. You get it now? So let's say look at this. You can see the space that is remaining here. So let's say I want one particular item to grow to cover the space that is remaining. I can come here, I can come to this one here, this first item. Then I'll do flex grow. I will set it to 1. So now watch. It's going to grow to cover the space remaining. You see that? Can you see it grew to cover the space remaining? Then you can also give it, you can give the second value, the second item, a flex grow of 1 as well. So if you give it a flex grow of 1, so both items, flex items, will grow to cover the space remaining. Can you see? So why this 3 and 4 is still 100 pixel, while all these ones grew beyond 100 pixel to cover the space that is remaining in the container. So I can do the same thing too for the flex item. I can do flex grow 1 and also flex grow 1 as well. So if I save, look at what we have. So all items grew to cover the space that is what remaining. You see that now? Nice. So even though I shrink this, can you see? I shrink this. When I shrink it, as I'm shrinking this, I'm reducing this. Once it's below on okay. Let me, I think I've turned off the flesh shrink. Let me turn it on back. Alright, so let's see. So once I reduce it, you see that now. Once I reduce it below 100 pixel for the item, 100 pixel, the default value, the default width value for the flex item. Once I reduce below that, you're going to have horizontal scroll bar here. All right, so this might not really make sense now. Once we start looking at in looking at it in practical, building project with it, then you will properly what understand it. All right, let's move on. So aside from that, let's see what time I have left. Okay, so aside from that, you can say you want one item to grow faster or bigger than other items. So you can say, okay, I want item 2 to grow twice of every item, of every flex item that we have here. So you see, this will grow twice. So this item 2 is bigger than every other item that we have here. So I think that's that. So the next one we are going to look at is flex basis. So flex basis specifies the initial size of a flex item before it is what adjusted by flex grow or flex shrink. So just like the way we have width to be 100 pixel, height to be on width to be 100 pixel. So we can change it from width to what flex basis, because since flex basis determine the size of the flex items. So you can't use flex basis if the items are not flex items. If they are not flex item, just use width. But if they are flex item, you can either use width or flex basis. So if I do flex basis now, so the flex basis is now a substitute for what? For the flex width. So I do flex basis of 100 pixel, 100 pixel. So it's still going to be the same thing here. You see that now, still the same thing. So I think that's that about flex box. So we are done. Flex box. So let's see how we can build something nice with it. Let's see how we can build this with flex box. So that we have learned. Let's see how we can build this. All right. I'm going to send you a new link now. I'll send you a new link. So please join ASAP.